We made it through episode 1, Eric, and we're back for episode 2, and the Jets are back for week 2. Is it too early for me to say must win?
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Jets Fight Club. The sickest New York Jets podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome back into the Sick Podcast, Jets Flight Club. I'm Jake Brown alongside my co-host, former Jet safety, Erik Coleman. Make sure you smash that thumbs up on YouTube. Comment below what your predictions are for week 2. Jets-Titans down in Tennessee. The beers will be flowing. The blondes will be out. The people will be partying. There'll be a lot of Jet fans, I'm sure, making the trip. I've still never been to Tennessee. I hear Nashville, Eric, is a good time. I'm sure you've sipped a couple of fine beers in Nashville over your years.
Had a blast in Nashville. It's definitely a place where you have to go. There's a party. There's a different party on every corner. Great time in Nashville. Hopefully Jets fans will have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, I think it's like the home of bachelor and bachelorette parties these days. I know a ton of people who go there for them, and the Jets are hoping to have a winning party on Sunday. And, you know, week 2 is probably a little bit early, Eric, for me to say must win. But the panic, especially in New York, if the Jets start the season 0-2 after they're showing in week 1, and then if they find a way to lose Will Levis, who found a way to throw a pick six when winning a football game in the final minutes, if that happens and they lose, going into the home opener as well, you have to factor that in. If they lose this game, the Thursday won't have the same oomph to it of Aaron Rodgers' return to MetLife Stadium if they are going in 0-2.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the Jets losing this game, though. You know, you go into week 1, and it's almost like an extension of the preseason because, you know, quite frankly, the Jets look gassed in week 1. And, you know, I think that they'll definitely bounce back. The Titans just lost a close game to a really bad Chicago Bears team.
Caleb Williams threw for 93 yards. I mean, you want to talk about bad, that's bad.
Yeah, and they still found a way to beat the Tennessee Titans. So, you know, I don't see the Jets putting on a performance like that again. They were playing the NFC champs and probably the future NFC champs in the San Francisco 49ers. So probably one of the best offenses in the league. And I think things are getting much better for the Jets moving forward.
Erik Coleman at Erik Coleman, Jake Brown Radio at SickPod Jets on Twitter is where you can find us. Tweet us there. Let us know your thoughts about this game. And, you know, it's not a Jets season early on without a couple shots being thrown their way. How about Nick Bosa taking a subtle shot at the Jets coaching staff, Eric, saying, this week I think we're playing a better team, talking about the Vikings. They're playing better football. It looks like we're going to have to be better in our techniques. We got away with things last week, so we have to hone in and not pat ourselves on the back. The smack talk is coming the Jets' way, and this is something, Eric, that we're going to see all season with the way the Jets, like we said on the last show, walked the walk, or I should say talked the talk. They didn't walk the walk in the offseason. They talked a lot this offseason. They were the big storyline. Teams are going to come in smack talking, and they got one right ahead of them when their old friend makes his Titans debut, and that's Jamal Adams. And you want to talk about smack talk, he is the king of smack talk. And early on in his Jets career, he walked the walk and talked the talk. The last couple of years, he's been, I'll say it again, APB out. Where is Jamal Adams? Like, now he has a chance to talk a little extra smack in his debut for the Titans against the Jets. And that's a big storyline I'm looking at going into this football game, of him coming in here with a chip on his shoulder against his former squad that traded him in a trade that was controversial, but looking back on it was genius by Joe Douglas in getting the draft picks they did. But, you know, he's not thinking that in the back of his head. He's thinking, I'm coming for heads, and I'm coming for Aaron Rodgers' head. And that scares me a little bit because Jamal Adams is a physical player. And, you know, the Jets left unnicked with no significant injuries leaving San Francisco. If he comes flying at someone, they might not leave Tennessee without a significant injury.
I agree with you. You know, and I remember back when I was playing, the year after I left the Jets to go to Atlanta in free agency, we played the Jets at MetLife Stadium, and I was fired up. You know, it was like I was taking oxygen after the first series because I was just so motivated to go prove a point to the Jets that, I belong there. I should have been their guy. And I'm sure Jamal is going to have the same sentiments. I ran into Jamal this offseason in Dallas. I ran into him in the airport, and I pride myself in the shape that I'm in. I'm a pretty big guy.
Yeah, you're jacked. People were saying that in the picture of us from like 8 years ago, how jacked you were. I assume you're the same or more jacked 8 years later.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Jamal looked about twice the size of me. He's been working really hard, and I had a couple of minutes to talk with him, and he was saying how this is his first off season where he's been able to focus on getting better. Because he's had injuries in the past, trades, all the different distractions. He's like, this offseason, I've really just been focused on improving on my skills, improving on what I need to get better at, getting faster, getting more explosive. And you better believe, if you're the New York Jets, you better have your head on a swivel because, he does not slow down when he's coming downhill.
I'm worried if he looked twice the size of you that he looked like the Incredible Hulk, because that's hard to do. Like, how much do you bench these days, Erik?
Man, I don't go for weight anymore. I have a lot of shoulder injuries, so do a lot of reps. But I can still throw some weight around. I can still put up some pretty big numbers if I need to. I can handle myself.
Well, for the video people watching on YouTube right now, I want you to flex and I'm gonna flex, and we're gonna see the difference in muscle. So put the right arm up. I got nothing. Yeah, look at the difference. It is night and day. And body by Jake is body by Erik on this show. It's motivation for me to hit the gym. My dad's place here and his new place do have a nice gym. So I have no excuse now. I'm unemployed. So really I have the extra time to be able to go and work on my fitness. Yeah. I'm working on a new look, obviously not the muscle because I got nothing there, but people have called it the Travis Kelce, or you call it the Jewish Hitler look. I prefer Travis Kelce over the Jewish Hitler. I've gotten mixed reactions. I need your honest opinion, and I need people's watching honest opinion because it is kind of a scary look, but it is kind of unique. And I'm trying to figure out a new look that works, that's not the kind of scruffy beard and better for camera and, so I can put myself in a TV position. Do I keep the stash, Erik, or do you think I go boss baby, clean shaven all the way?
I definitely think you have to keep some facial hair, and I've been wanting to experiment with just having the stash myself, but I have too many stitches on my chin from wearing like an unpadded chin strap, so I can't. But I like the look. You got the clean shave. We both look like milk duds. You look like the vanilla version, but I do like the stash. It's going to grow on people. Just take your time. But if I could grow a full beard, I think I would rock the beard. So I definitely like you with the beard look.
I've been told I look like Wooly Willy, that thing the Etch-a-Sketch thingy. Maybe Shane, you could put up a picture, as we're talking here, of me next to Wooly Willy and see if there's the resemblance. But I don't know. I just don't want to look like Hitler, especially as a Jewish man. I don't want to have that look. Or a guy like from the country. I'm a New Yorker, and that's why I got my chain back on. When I first came here to Philly, I wasn't rocking the chain, and I didn't like it. So there's Wooly Willy. If you're watching on YouTube, it's pretty close. I mean, it's fairly close. You could also put a boss baby up, and that's what I would look like if I shaved the thing completely. But I think you're right. Like, you need facial hair. And, the beard I kept because it's definitely a better look. And for dating, you're talking to girls, you meet girls out. If I'm completely shaven, I'm getting nobody. Like, no girls coming. So at least the stash, maybe they're like, is that a chubby Travis Kelce with no hair? Like, I'm like, yes, that's me. Jake Kelce. I wish I was part of that family. The money they got coming in. You saw their new podcast deals like $100 million or something like that. So working to get to that level. But Wooly Willy, Boss Baby, Jake Brown Radio. I'm also experimenting with a name change of either Jake Brown Media, Jake Brown Show, Jake Brown TV. I think radio, Erik, is becoming not a thing of the past, but everything's so video and digitalized that I need to move on to a new era as well. So I'm having a new era, new moment right now in my life. It's a big transition. I'm not becoming a woman. I'm not becoming a tranny. I'm staying a man. I know there's a lot of that going on in the world right now, but I'm going to stay a man, Erik.
All right. I appreciate it. Maybe try what I got going on with the goatee, with the mustache. Let's mix it up.
That's going to be the next look. I'm going to keep this, and once it grows back, we'll do a goatee, and we'll have matching goatees. Here on the Sick Podcast, Jets Flight Club, Jake Brown Radio, Erik Coleman, former Jets safety, and let's take a trip into Coleman's corner now. Let's get back to business. And I want to go back to Jets Titans when you played. And you might not remember the game, but you remember your trips to Tennessee, or maybe you don't. If they were that fun, maybe you don't remember some of them. But you guys in that season started the season off against the Titans, and it was also an era where you played 4 preseason games. Now it's 3. There's a little bit of a layover between the end of preseason games and the first game of the regular season, which could be a factor to why Sauce Gardner was out for a little bit, and he was a little bit gassed, and some players maybe were gassed. Take us back into Coleman's corner, week 1, Jets Titans, and that was a year you guys made the playoffs. So we want to go back to a positive year, and a year I remember well because I was at that playoff game in Foxborough getting tortured by Patriots fans. Even security guards, police guards outside the stadium were yelling at us for going the wrong direction. So it was brutal that you lost by 3 touchdowns that game. But go back, week 1, Jets Titans, and overall week 1 going into week 2 in your career.
Going back to 2006 season when we started the season off against the Tennessee Titans at Tennessee, it was a tough year for me. It was my first year going from Herm Edwards to Eric Mangini. And the second day of training camp, my stomach started hurting and there was something going on with me. Well, after a week of going through different training and trying to figure things out, it was figured out that I had my appendix had ruptured. So I had to have an emergency appendectomy. I missed a couple of weeks of training camp, and going into that week, it was like, man, am I in shape? Am I going to be okay to make it through this game? And, for a lot of guys, we had a very tough training camp that year. There were guys that looked tired in week 1, but I think that their legs just weren't, their legs weren't caught up from how tough training camp was. And there were guys throwing up on the sidelines, guys who were tired, and it was hot that day in Tennessee. So I think we were able to come out victorious in that game, but definitely a big eye-opening experience for us, understanding how we had to take care of our bodies. This was only week 1. Guys were struggling after that game. And it made me look back to the Jets week 1. And I saw Sauce go out. Maybe he got the wind knocked out of him, but I know that guys can be gassed in that first week. It's hard to simulate. It's actually impossible to simulate a game when you're not playing in the preseason. You can't do it at practice. There's no level of conditioning that you can do in the training camp that can simulate what you're going to go through a game. Your emotions are high, your heart rate's going up. You have to learn how to regulate yourself while still focusing. There's a lot that goes into it, but overall, I think that was a big lesson for the Jets, and it was a big lesson for us back in 2006. That week 1, we were able to get through it and go on to week 2 much more rested and ready to go for that matchup.
It's crazy when I look back to that roster, and I don't have a great memory for certain years, and maybe those mid 2000s I forget. I look at the roster.
You're probably like 10 years old in 2016.
2006,
excuse me.
2006. I was 15. I was born in 91, so I was 15. I thought I don't remember that much Derek Blaylock or Kevin Barlow. I remember Leon Washington. He's one of my favorite players. I don't remember, Chad obviously was the starting quarterback. The receivers I remember, and Cotry and Brad Smith and Laverty Coles. I even remember Wallace Wright. I don't remember Derek Blaylock that well. I remember Cedric Houston. I remember BJ Askew. I remember that name. Barlow and Blaylock, I did not remember that well. And it's amazing to me, that team with those running backs, I mean, they had a good receiver, and Chad was just so damn accurate. The defense was good, but some of those guys and some of your teammates, that team, I do not remember, especially those running backs.
Yeah, well, I remember both of them very well. Obviously, I played with them, but playing against them, Kevin Barlow played for the 49ers. He was a big running back out of Pitt. His thighs were the size of, most guys' waists. He ran with he punished defenders as he ran the football, and didn't have a great career with the Jets, but was definitely a solid running back, and a great teammate to play with. And Derek Blaylock, I remember because the year before the season opener, we opened up at Kansas City, and the Chiefs ran all over us. It was Larry Johnson, it was Derek Blaylock, and they had that offensive line with Willie Rofe and all these big names, and they really beat us up. And so I remember both of those guys from playing against them. And then once they came on the team, it was really cool to be able to play with some guys that you respected. And I think they did a good job that year. We ran the ball fairly well. It was a good offensive year for us, and we had a ton of weapons.
Do you think? I love that they cut preseason because I hate preseason games. I think 4 was too many. Do you think that was smart in terms? You mentioned the health and guys getting tired. is this the way to do it? 3 and then you get the break between, or do you think every year we're going to see sluggish starts? Because for the Jets, I mean, they look like that was a preseason tune-up for them. It did not look like the Jets team that we're hoping to see the rest of the year. Does it need to go back to 4, or do you think it's good as it is?
I think it's good as it is, especially with the 17 games. I think for the Jets, having Aaron Rodgers injured on the first drive of the season last year, you can't help but be a little hesitant about running your starters out there, because the ultimate goal in going through training camp is, one, to get through healthy, but you want to make sure you get in shape, find out the identity of your team. And it's tough to do that without playing in at least a couple of the series in a game. But when you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who's 40 years old, you have different weapons that are key components that if one guy goes down, then you're in trouble. It's kind of like a, pick your poison situation for the Jets. And, unfortunately it was, I want to say that it was magnified when you play the San Francisco 49ers, because, we're going into week 2 right now. By week 15, week 16, you're going to be talking about the 49ers as having the most dynamic offense in the NFL. Kyle Shanahan is a mastermind, and he knows Robert Saleh's defense. Robert Saleh coached with him. He knows every, different component. He knows every adjustment that defense is going to make. So everything was magnified when you play against the San Francisco 49ers. I think you'll see a better scope of the New York Jets going into week 2, playing the Tennessee Titans, an opponent that's, not as good. But I think you'll see the Jets dominate. They'll play better against the run. That defensive line will thrive, and I think they'll have a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks. The run game will get shut down, and you'll start to see that swagger that the Jets had, coming into the season.
And they need it. Let's look into this game. Let's do a deep dive into Jets Titans, 1 p.m. Sunday, Nissan Stadium. It's on CBS. It's my favorite broadcast duo, and a lot of people want to say Aikman and Joe Buck are the best. In my opinion, my favorite crew is Ian Eagle and Charles Davis, and they are on the call for Jets Titans. 2 teams, 0-1. This is the home opener for the Titans. And Eric, the Titans coming in, losing the Chicago Bears last week, 24-17, in a game they were up 17-16, and just an inexcusable throw from Will Levis. And something to watch for in this game is, can the Jets force mistakes out of Will Levis? Because he made an inexcusable pick 6. He had 2 awful interceptions. He had 127 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, 4 rushes for 36, something you're also going to have to watch for him. But if you can force him into mistakes, you can win this game. He is a young, inexperienced quarterback. He's a guy who, if you do a deep dive on the internet for him, you might see leaks of his, I think, sex tape or his leaked pictures of him, which – at your own discretion. I haven't looked it up, but if you're into that kind of stuff, Will Levis is junk is out there, and his junk is out there on the field as well, because he stunk. And it was a battle of bad quarterback play last week. Caleb Williams was even worse, throwing for 93, but their defense did the job. It's going to be intriguing. The matchup to watch for me is Will Levis and his inexperience, and does he make that mistake against a Jets defense that should be coming out very hungry, as me and Yom Kippur. Like, they should be that hungry. So the sun's going down and the Jews are hungry on Yom Kippur. That should be the Jets defense. And we know that's going to be Jamal Adams, Eric, but it really should be this Jets defense, because they got something to prove. They got a big chip on their shoulder, just like Jamal does going against his former team. This defense was embarrassed last week against the Niners. Now they get a quarterback who was embarrassed himself last week, who has had some moments. Listen, last season as rookie Eric, he had some remarkable throws down the field. He had some unreal plays as a rookie, some great touchdown passes. He's got some good receivers, but this Jets defense better feast, and they better attack, and Ulbrich better draw up blitzes on every drop. Like, I better see a lot more blitzes and aggressiveness from this defense. And if it means someone's open, fine, but you have to hit him, and you have to force a deflected ball and a big mistake. And that's really the big way for the Jets to win this football game.
Yeah, I mean, for the Jets to get into that position to force Will Levis into mistakes, it's going to start with the line of scrimmage, winning that battle at the line of scrimmage that they did not win last week. This defense is a prideful unit. They're one of the top 5 defense in the NFL last year with no offensive production. So you look at them this year, they have all the makings to be a great defense. They have a quarterback who can sustain drives, who can move the chains. They have a prolific offense that you coming into the season, this is all the talk. So now you're going to get rest on the defense. You're going to be able to go out there and make plays and play with the lead. These are things that you look for, if you're playing defense. The Jets didn't do that in week 1, but you're looking for it in week 2. But it all starts with the Jets stopping that run. Tony Pollard is a very accomplished running back. He rushed for 82 yards last week on 16 carries. He averaged over 5 yards a carry. Some think Tennessee didn't run the ball enough. They should have put the ball in the hands of Tony Pollard down the stretch and let him move the chains. But the Jets, if they're going to be successful, they have to stop the run, get off the field on third down, put up some points. That's when you make it a Will Levis game where the Jets have a lead. They're stopping the run. They force Will Levis to pass the ball. And that's when the Jets are going to be opportunistic. That's when you're going to see that pass rush. That's when you're going to see Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed making plays on the back end, getting interceptions and getting the ball back to the Jets in great territory. So I think this is a game, but it all starts. The success of this game is all going to be based on, can the Jets stop the run?
And, it's a defense, Eric, that's still without Haason Reddick. And, the latest with him is him or his agent, Tory Dandy, and Joe Douglas are talking, but that's it. There's no resolution. Seems like there's no resolution in sight. Some league execs are saying, not sure they have a choice but to trade him. But, what do you trade him and then he magically plays? Like, who wants to acquire him? Who wants to acquire a player who hasn't shown up? So this is just a mess across the board. It's a mess for his agent. It's a mess for Haason. It's a mess for the Jets, because why didn't the Jets have a deal when they made the trade? Like, why didn't they have this planned out? I think it's a bad look on them as well, because they passed on Bryce Huff, who is in an intriguing situation, Eric, himself in Philly, losing playing time. Bryce Huff, that was his problem here, is he wasn't happy with his playing time. I know personally he wasn't happy with the New York taxes and how much he was losing on his paycheck for taxes in New York. That's part of why he didn't want to play here, and he wanted to play more. Well, he's not playing more, so Bryce Huff's in a weird conundrum. Haason Reddick's in a weird conundrum. The Jets are in a weird conundrum, and if you trade him, it's like you got to find a way to replace him. If you trade him for a pick, you got to find a way before the trade deadline to add a pass rusher, because you went into this season expecting to have him. And if you're going to lose JFM, who you gave away and didn't bring back, if you're going to lose Bryce Huff, who you didn't want to pay, and you're going to trade for Haason Reddick and he's not going to play, this Jets defense is good, but it's not as elite as we talked about going into the season. If they're without any of these guys, they got to find a way to work this thing out. And I just don't think trading him does anything unless you're getting an impact player before the deadline.
Yeah, definitely the best situation is to get him back on the field. And, for Haason, I as a former player, I hate to see him losing out on, one, the opportunity to go out there and prove himself, and two, he's missing a lot of money, and that he's not going to get back. So, it's a big opportunity for the Jets. I think that they have to find a way to come to some type of agreement. Haason has made his career off of getting after quarterbacks. And if the Jets have a pass rusher that can force the ball out, maybe force a couple of turnovers, you would love to see that as a Jets fan, and see their defense turn over the football in that way. But it doesn't help anybody for Haason to be on the bench. Obviously you got to handle your business. You got to take care of yourself. The money is your only leverage. You're playing if you're Haason, but man, try to figure something out. Try to, maybe it's a 1-year deal, prove it deal, but you've got to get out in the field and prove your worth.
Haason has to have a very nice savings account, because he's down $6.6 million if he doesn't play. It's $800,000 per game, $5 million the man. Imagine, Eric, losing out $6.6 million because your agent, and I guess you, because you're agreeing to what your agent's saying, decide not to show $6.6 million. And we talked about it last week. You're not putting anything on tape, and you're about to be a free agent. So it's funny to me that a team would consider trading for him, because who says he shows up for your team? Like, does he show up to just shove it in the Jets' face? None of this makes sense to me, and losing $6.6 million in the end ultimately makes zero sense.
Yeah, it does not help anybody. It doesn't help the Jets, doesn't help Haason or his family. It's tough, because I've never been in that position. I've never been the guy that's going to hold out and be willing to put it all on the deck. I've never had that leverage before. So, for him to be in that position, I just hate to see it. I hate to see it because he's never going to get that money back, and that is life-changing amount of money.
Note to Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald, come out and ball. It's your time. Two young players who need to take that sophomore leap and take that next step. And I'm looking for, Will McDonald is his it third year? Have I lost my?
Yeah, but I believe
this
is his third year.
His third year. These guys have got to step up. It's your time. This is his second year. Excuse me. He was 15 games last year. He did almost nothing last year. Both those guys have to step it up, and this Jets defense has to step it up. The Titans defense, 2 sacks last week. They held DeAndre Swift to just 30 yards rushing. The matchup to watch for me is L'Jarius Sneed versus Garrett Wilson. Sneed is one of the best cornerbacks in the game, and he's going to probably be the man manning Garrett Wilson, and that's going to be intriguing because Garrett had 11 targets last week, and he was the go-to guy. In fact, there were only 3 of them: Lazard, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. That, to me, Jake's take for this week is that the Jets need to get everyone involved. You have to factor in, if you look at the weather report, 70% plus chance of rain and thunderstorms in Nashville for this game, which means it's going to be an ugly one, which means everyone's got to find a way to be involved. You have to mix it up. You got to get Tyler Conklin involved. Breece in the receiving game has to be a factor. You have to be smart with the play calling. With the bad weather, you might have to throw balls at the line of scrimmage, screens, reverses, do some things where you're not taking shots down the field and guys are dropping balls and slipping like we saw in Brazil with everyone slipping due to the turf conditions there. It could be ugly conditions in Tennessee. Remember, coming off the hurricane this week too. So it's an ugly week there weather-wise, and this could be an ugly game. But in my opinion, Eric, Hackett's got to be better. Like I said, he's got to get the Yak King, Malachi Corley, involved. He's got to get Gibson involved. We saw Lazard. You got to get Conklin involved. You need to get Mike Williams' snap count up. He only played 18% of snaps. They're probably, with the weather, going to be careful, but I like to see that closer to 50%. I want him out there more, and I want to see the presence that Mike Williams is as that deep threat, and that's a big reason that they got him, to give Aaron Rodgers that deep ball. So more involvement across the board is the key for me in this game. Eric, what's your biggest key takeaway going into Tennessee?
I mean, my biggest takeaway, I kind of alluded to it earlier, is can the Jets stop the run? They gave up 160 yards on the ground last week, 180 yards on the ground last week for the 49ers. This is a team where the Tennessee Titans don't want to rely on their quarterback. They don't want to rely on Will Levis. You saw what he did last week. They came in there, they were playing Chicago, had a lead. He gave it up, gave up a pick six, and they lost the game. So this is a guy who I don't think they can trust. They're going to rely on that run game, and it's going to be up to the Jets. So they're going to stop that run and force the Titans' hand, force Will Levis to throw the ball. It's going to create a lot of opportunities for these Jets. But offensively, you got to get the ground game going as well. I know I'm an old school guy. As a defender, your first goal is stopping the run on offense. You've got to run the ball. That opens up things for the play action. That opens up deep shots for Garrett Wilson. That opens up opportunities for other players when you can run the football. It slows down the game. It gives the defense a chance to get back on the field, or to get rested off the field. And it gives Aaron Rodgers a chance to take some shots down the field to some open receivers. So I think getting Breece Hall involved early, running that football, establishing the run, is going to be a key. You said it's going to be an ugly game. Let's strap it up, put a couple extra pumps in your helmet, and let's toughen this game out.
Yeah, like with the weather, we said it's going to be very ugly. And Tony Pollard had a good week 1 in his debut for the Titans, 16 for 82 and a touchdown, averaging just over 5 yards a carry, same as Jordan Mason did against the Jets. So you're right. Up front, the Jets, Breece Hall's got to be better. And I think, again, on Hackett, be more creative with the run game. First down, don't run every time. Get some play action, because the play action will force the run game to work, because they're not going to be sure what's coming their way. So if we can get first down play actions versus first down simple handoffs, like I said with the Moby Dick and Cat in the Hat last week, the Jets running plays were not creative. There was no one in motion. There was no chance of reverse. There was no chance of a play. They have to get more creative with moving guys around, have Malachi Corley come in the backfield and a threat to pitch it to him. I know I sound like, I'd like to see you call the plays just from playing Madden. Well, these are things I see coaches in the modern NFL doing, and that the Jets seem light years behind. And I think they got to get with the program and, do things creatively, offensively. If it's a run of Breece Hall, fine. But, fake a reverse to Corley while you're doing it. Get a fullback in motion. Have Tyler Conklin in motion. Mix it up and make this Titans defense, a little bit concerned. But, in the end, I think the Jets are the better team, and this is a monster game for them. They are the playoff contender here. No one looks at the Titans as a playoff contender. They're going to be fired up. This is their home opener. They're coming off a game that they should have won. But the Jets have to say, hey, we need to go into our home opener a couple days later against the Patriots, by the way, who are coming off a win over the Bengals. So the Jets right now, early on, but last place in the division, they're looking at this like, we got to get ourselves a W. We got to get Aaron Rodgers a W. And I expect Aaron Rodgers to look a lot better too. I expect, like I said, Eric, for him to take advantage of the defense. This is a younger Titans team. It's an inexperienced team led by a rookie defensive coordinator in Denard Wilson, who was formerly with the Jets from 2017 to 2020. In his first year in that position, he's never been a defensive coordinator. He's only been a defensive backs coach. So I expect him to try and get aggressive, and that could lead Aaron Rodgers chances down the field. It could also lead to advantage of 12 men on the field. Like I said, an offside, a free play. Aaron Rodgers needs to be the vintage Aaron Rodgers and take advantage of this Titans defense. And that's how the Jets are going to win this game. Well, we'll give our prediction for the game here, which will be our combined pick, and then we'll give our individual pick. But I think we're in agreement here on the Flight Club's finest picks of the week. I like the New York Jets to win this game. Now, the spread changes from around 3.5 to 4 at different sports books. I saw it in BetMGM at 3.5. I buy the point and make it 2.5 because you never know with this Jets team. It could come down to a field goal. It could come down to Greg the Leg. But I think we're in lockstep, Eric. The Jets are going to find a way to scratch this game out. And if the weather wasn't a big concern, I might not buy the point and just take the Jets 3.5 or 4. But with the weather, I think there could be some ugly elements, some turnovers, some fumbles, some picks in this football game. I like the Jets if you buy the point. Jets minus 2.5.
I love that, Jake. I love the Jets with the points. I think this is going to be a big statement win for them. But again, the weather is going to change the way that this game is played. For my pick, I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans under 18.5 points at minus 110. I don't see this Tennessee offense putting up that many points. The Jets, hopefully they'll get that run stop this week. And Will Levis is not a guy who's going to just who's going to light up the scoreboard offensively for you. DeAndre Hopkins has been banged up. He played last week, but he's not the same old D-Hop as the past. He's a little banged up right now. Running the football, I don't think it's going to happen for the Titans, so I'm going to take them under that 18.5 points.
I like that pick, and like we said last week, Rodgers' record when defenses hold teams to like 17 or under, which you're saying it would probably be around 17 or 18, is like 85-10. So the track record shows that the Jets would win if that under does hit. They should win this game, and Aaron Rodgers needs to be on the field a lot more than he was last week. A career low 21 minutes. He's never had that little time of possession on the field. Remember, some of that was with Tyrod Taylor. So it was really like 18 minutes, 17 minutes that he was on the field. Like, we need more Aaron Rodgers out there. One, for the Jets to win, and two, for our own enjoyment. Like, we want to see him sling it. We want to see the future Hall of Famer throw the ball. Like, we've been waiting 2 years for this, and we saw it, but the only touchdown we got was because of an offside and a free play. Like, I want to see a lot more Aaron Rodgers. I'd like to see closer to 30 minutes of the Jets on the field, and that comes with, like you said, dominating the ground game. Like, if they could eat clock up with the ground game and set up that play action, they will win this game. My prop bet pick of the week is Breece Hall over receiving yards. This is a guy who, with that sloppy weather, I said he's going to have to get involved in the screen game. If the Titans are going to lock up the Jets on the run game, get him involved on the outside. Breece Hall is as good or even better a receiver as he is a running back, because when he has space, he makes magic happen. He had 5 catches for 39 last week. Breece Hall's hit the over receiving yards mark in 13 of his last 17 games. The number's right around 29.5. Some books is at 30.5. I think Breece Hall is going to get over that. arguably he gets over that with one screen pass, Eric. Like if he has one and he breaks it loose, that's 35 yards alone on one play. So I see Aaron Rodgers as a security blanket, and in the screen game, finding Breece Hall as a receiver, and I think that over 30.5 hits. Those are the Flight Club's finest pick of the week. Give us your score. I'm going to go with the one in 2006. You know what? I'm going to go with the same one, Eric. 23-16. The score you guys beat them in week 1. The Jets will win 18 years later. Man, you must feel old here in that 18 years later number. 23-16 Jets over the Titans. Give me your score for the game.
Oh, I like it. I was going to say more like a 28-17. I think the Jets, this game is going to get away from the Titans. The Jets are going to take over. I like them putting up a lot of points, perhaps scoring on special teams or on defense. So I think 28-17 is a great score for me with the Jets winning that game.
And like special teams, we talk about the Yak King and Gibson. Would love to see them break loose. We saw a few last week around the NFL. We saw a punt return for a touchdown. We saw a kick return for a touchdown. Like, these rules should favor these explosive weapons that the Jets have that we have yet to see. So please.
The Titans gave up a touchdown last week on special teams. So
yep. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Why not us? And why not the Yak King? Like, I've heard about this guy so much. No one knew about him besides his name is the Yak King because he went to Western Kentucky. Like, he went to a school that no one watches their games. And, you cover college football. You weren't watching Western Kentucky games.
Nope.
And we need to see these guys' involvement. We need to see them, just give them the football in some capacity. I don't care if it's behind the line of scrimmage. The hope is that these guys are explosive, and even if they're behind the line of scrimmage, they'll have blockers and they'll find a way to get positive yardage. And I think Nathaniel Hackett has to realize that. He's Erik Coleman. He's taking the Jets 28-17. I'm taking the Jets, same score as 2006, 23-16 in what could be a sloppy game. Let's see if the weather report changed, but for now, it looks like this is going to be a rain game. And I think that does favor the Jets. Let's hope they leave unscathed and healthy like they did in week 1. Knock on wood. Doesn't happen often. The weather and the slippery field scares me in that sense. But hopefully, this game does become a blowout and Aaron Rodgers could rest again, but this time, winning rest. Although we want to see a victory formation, we want to make sure he gets to every next week. We want to make sure he leaves the field winning and healthy going to the next week. Because 41 years old, how old are you, Eric? 42?
42.
Your body's breaking down a little bit, right?
No, I'm like fine wine.
You're fine.
Just getting better.
So if the Jets need a safety, if Tony Adams gets hurt, they're calling Erik Coleman, you're saying?
Yeah, I can get you through a series. Get 2 series for you.
Oh, you're like Sauce Gardner in week 1.
But you may be talking about me, though. You may be talking about me because I may miss a tackle or two, but I can get them lined up. We
don't want that. We've seen enough missed tackles in our life as Jets fans. We'll be here to cover it first thing Monday morning after Jets-Titans. Hopefully the first happy victory Monday of the season. And, it'll be great because if you win, then it's coming home. I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Tell the world Rodgers is coming home to beat the Pats and Mayo away. Forget the days of yesterday because the Pats aren't this good. They just got lucky against Joe Burrow, who's been out for a year. So that's the remix to that. We're excited for it. We'll be here to cover it on the Sick Podcast. Jets Flight Club. Jake Brown, Erik Coleman. We'll talk to you Monday. Let's go Jets.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Jets Fight Club on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.